As Hawaii Republican representatives,
we are standing for those who dream of freedom,
desire common sense,
and believe in Ohana,
the very foundation of our nation.
Life, liberty,
and the pursuit of happiness.
Now more than ever, we need to take a stand
for the issues that are important.
And there has never been a more relevant time
for your voice to be heard.
Think about it.
We live in a time where crime has spiraled out of control.
Homelessness is on every corner.
And many are simply priced out of paradise.
That's why we're making every effort to listen to you.
Imagine that, listening to you.
Politicians listening to you.
Listening to you.
Imagine that, listening to you.
Listening to you is what we want to do, and here's how.
Join us for the listening tour.
A live in-person event
coming to our local communities
to listen to you
in order to truly represent your concerns in the legislature.
This is an opportunity for you to be heard.
And it's our honor to truly listen.
There has never been a more pivotal time than right now
to come together as we the people.
The listening tour.
It's time for you to speak out
and for us to listen.
Aloha, Koko. Aloha.
Aloha.
I'm here to listen a little bit louder now. Hey, great to see all of you. I'm Representative Gene Ward, and I have the honor of representing you in the state legislature and in the Hawaii caucus. Before we get started, we got a couple of announcements. How many of you remember Senator Sam Sloan? Let me see your hands. The good senator has some good news from some of the good constituents in the area of Hawaii Kai. And we have Liz Moore, who's going to make a great announcement. I hope everybody will listen to this about what's happening with the future and Senator Sam Sloan. Liz Moore, let's give her a round of applause. She can stand up. Liz, let's hear it.
Okay. Well, I've had the honor of meeting Sam in 1966, so you can see how old I am. But we're near the age of Sam. And at that point then, I think I could, oh, they need me? They need that? Okay. And so, of course, I was always supporting him when he finally ran for office. I had asked him many times before that, please run for office. And he wasn't sure, and so on and so forth. So that's a long history. But I felt that when he was in office, for the many years he didn't make it, sometimes he was the only one that was elected from the Republican side on the Senate. And yet he never baffled. He always held the position. And so then he was called the Lone Ranger because he made his articulation alone. And yet most of the time, he didn't get anywhere because the majority was the majority, but he was always acknowledged as very well articulating what the positions were. And so when he died, and the last couple of years I had only been talking to him, I hadn't even seen him. I knew I had met him, of course, last time we actually gathered together was 3 years ago, but I thought there was something should be done. And he was, when I first met him, was at First Hawaiian Bank Economic Research Department. He was at Bank of Hawaii Economic Department, and so that's how we initially met. And his boss had been associated with Hillsdale College. So Sam had a long connection with Hillsdale College, so I thought maybe that would be good to maybe set up a scholarship memorial fund. And so I've been working with Hillsdale College the last 2 months, and that's what I've been accomplishing.
Did everybody hear that? Sam Sloan Scholarship Memorial Fund.
For Hillsdale College. Now,
yeah, that's...
Initially, what they did is something like this. And when I saw that a few days ago, I said, you know, at this point, I think perhaps we should get his picture on there so people would recognize it when they see this flyer. And this is going to be a flyer that then hopefully a lot of us will distribute, and people may remember that this may be something worthwhile to remember him. So basically, you can ask some of the legislatures that I'm sure I'll have those. At this point, this is going to be finalized. I just did that this morning. So
Okay, Liz, I'll make the ask.
You make the ask.
They need $100,000. The person that you're listening to is going to do a good share of that.
Well,
Liz, can
hold
I
on.
say how much
Okay.
about that?
No.
Don't say anything about
Well,
that.
fine, I don't like
You're
to say
very
that.
generous, let
I'm
me
going
put
to
it
do
that way.
10,000, but that's, but at this point, when they told me that it's an endowment fund, you have to have 100,000, I said, okay, at this point, I can't guarantee that fairly soon, enough of that is going to be. I said, I would like to, could you not, whatever you get this next year, could you not just give a partial endowment? So that's what they're going to do, okay? So by next spring, whatever the amount is, they're going to be talking, it'll be someone in Hawaii schools. They're going to be sending out the fact that this will be available, and then students can apply for it. But at that point, then I'm sure the legislatures will tell you what amount the first year will be. But I hope that as this continues, people will continue contributing to it. So, okay, thank
Liz,
you.
thank you so much. A round of applause for Liz Moore and the Sam Sloan Memorial Scholarship Fund. You will be hearing a lot more about that, and there will be an ask. 100,000 is a lot of money, but for a scholarship, I think one scholarship is only 36,000, and they give a great education. We have another announcement. Some of you want to know, when is the celebration of life of Sam Sloan? Peggy knows, because Peggy, you do a quick one, because my...
We'll do a quick one. On November the 11th, we're going to have at Hawaii Kai Golf Course a celebration of life. And the reason we chose this is because Sam loved Pepsi Cola and he loved kosher hot dogs. And so we wanted to find a place where we could do that. And so everyone is invited. Mark your calendar for November the 11th. It's at 11 o'clock. More will be coming out, I'm sure. Yeah, and this District 19 is really in charge of this.
For sure. Everybody remembers Sam Sloan. So remember, November 11th, give honor where honor is due. And what we're going to do is honor God before we start out with the political and the other announcements. And we have a pastor here. By the way, Pastor Koko, I noticed on Sunday, sometimes the front tables are not used because in a church, hey, this is not a church service, guys. Nobody come up to the front. But Pastor Koko, you come here every Sunday, and we're going to ask you to bless this place as we proceed with our listening tour.
Absolutely. Aloha, everyone. My name is Pastor Josh Koko. My dad is Pastor Clayton Koko of First Assembly of God. And, it's amazing because the Greek word for what this is ecclesia. And in the Bible, it's a gathering of citizens, usually in the Roman Empire, to voice their concerns. And so what we're doing is participating in voicing our concerns on what uamau ke okaina ikapono, the life of the land is perpetuated in righteousness. And so we need to invite God to be a part of our conversation, to have open ears and open hearts. Can you pray with me? Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you, God, for this beautiful day. God, we live in a country of freedom, Father God. Lord, of liberty, where these ideals, Lord, by our founding fathers have been set in the Constitution, God, where, Lord, the people can share their voice and, Lord, our representatives can represent, but ultimately that we can share in the freedom that we have today, God. And so, Lord, we ask for, as we have this time together of sharing and speaking and listening, I pray, God, that your presence would be here, that you would be with our families, that your blessing would fall upon each and every person as we are all children of God. So, Lord, we ask your blessing on this time, on our representatives, on our government officials, and all those who have attended. May you be glorified in all that is said today, in Jesus' name. And all God's people said, amen. God bless.
Thank you, Pastor. Before we turn it over to the Roman listeners, I have one chief listener to introduce, and that is a young lady who has 2 young children, who has a PhD, who is the minority leader, who is going to MC this event. Would you please welcome Representative Lauren Matsumoto. Lauren, it's all yours.
Thanks, James. Good job. Okay, Joe. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on our listening tour. This is stop number 3. on our listening tour. We started on the windward side at Castle High School. We went to Mililani next. We're here, and next week we will be in Kapolei. We're also looking to go to the neighbor islands. And so we were thinking about this idea of, so often we have a town hall, where people ask questions. The politicians at the front, may I say, usually give a 1-minute, sometimes pretty unsatisfactory answer. But what we really wanted to do was flip the script on that and really hear from you in order to create legislation for the next session, for 2024. And so there's going to be a lot of interaction tonight. I know many of you already filled out the survey on what you want to talk about tonight. And so we're really excited to really be here to hear from you. So we're introducing the best possible legislation this next session. And so there's going to be a lot of interaction tonight. The first thing I wanted to do is pull up, for those of you who did the what do you want to talk about? And that's going to be coming up in just a second. And so these are the top issues that we want to talk about tonight. And so it looks a little small, but it looks like by far cost of living was the #1 issue. I see affordable housing, crime, election integrity, and government corruption and homelessness all tied for third. But we're going to start tonight really talking about, we'll start with the cost of living issues. We can also talk about housing, but we want to hear from you. So we do have in the audience our wonderful mic holders. So if you have a comment, we'd love to have you just raise your hand where you're at, and they will come and find you and be able to really comment on these things going forward. So we're gonna start with cost of living. And so I see a hand raised already. And while we're walking over there, I just wanted to let everybody know that our caucus has been really involved with what's happening in Maui. We wanted to make sure that we shared that our thoughts and prayers are there with everybody in Maui. And when it first happened, we really pushed to have a bipartisan approach in the Maui relief efforts. And so we went to our speaker and gave him a memo and asked to have investigative committees. We asked to have bipartisan committees, and there are 6 committees now. Each of us are a part of one of those committees. And so if you want more information about that, we can talk about it later. But I see we now have a comment on cost of living.
Yes, we have Cynthia from Kailua.
Yes, yesterday I went into Safeway and I just bought one item, and it hit me for the first time because Governor Green was bringing this up, that he wanted to get rid of the tax on food and medicine. And I think my item was $4.98, and then all of a sudden my price was $5 something. And I went, oh my gosh, all of us are being taxed on all of our food and the medications. There's no reason to be taxing on these really poverty level people. They get their medication and then they get a tax on it. Can the Republican Party take that as, their point so that we can have something to run with?
Great point, Cynthia. Lots of folks don't realize this, but Hawaii is one of 7 states in the whole country that taxes food, groceries, and you mentioned medicine as well. Most states don't tax that because they're basic necessities. In Hawaii, we do, and our caucus has since I think 1997, right? Gene, before that, for decades, we've introduced bills to eliminate the GET tax on food, medicine, and medical services. Unfortunately, it's been killed every year, but we stand ready to reintroduce again.
It's getting leverage, though. Josh Green even introduced it, but he fell on the wayside, having said that. Sorry. Please proceed. Blake?
Here's Vincent.
Hi. With the cost of living we're talking about, I was thinking about the Hawaiian Electric probably raising their prices because of the Lahaina fire, and they're probably going to raise prices on the merchants, the supermarkets, theaters, all of these vendors. And when these vendors get higher electric rates, that's going to add to our costs as well. I don't know if the Public Utilities Commission can do anything about it. And, they're in big trouble with all these lawsuits coming about. And we as, electric ratepayers, I don't know what we can do. And I think my prediction is that electric rates will go higher and they will add to our inflation costs as well. I don't know if we're powerless or if we can do anything about it.
Are you a prophet, sir? You're sounding like, no, seriously. Let's admit, when all of the lawsuits come to roost, this is going to be multi-million-dollar, if not billion-dollars, if you add up all the suits that are in process. The big surprise and the biggest suit, as far as I was concerned, let me walk this over to you, was when the county of Maui sued HECO. You know, when the big boys fight, there's really big damages that are going to come. How many of you got solar, by the way? How many of you got solar on your roof? And batteries, it may be because what this gentleman is saying is really true. Your electric bills, even though they've gone up probably 20 to 30% in the last couple of years, they are going to go even farther. Now, what can we do about that? Minority floor leader? We can tamp it down by having areas that are outside of the purview of the HECO and cut the cost of living. Case in point, you mentioned by the way, you mentioned the PUC. The PUC has a way of allowing rate increases to go, but how is the PUC convinced not to raise rates? What are we doing here tonight? People power, if the people lead, the politicians follow. What my point is, when they do raise it, you've got to show up and say, hey guys, we're already dying on the vine. Maui needs, obviously, the help, but we should not be raising the rates to where people can't even afford to keep their lights on. Do you have a follow-up to that very point?
We have Beverly from
Beverly?
Hawaii Kai.
I was buying some canned food for this affair, and I was tossed over at the Safeway when I saw that Vienna sausages were $2.95. So I bought a huge amount of Vienna sausages. Yes, they cost $18.95, but for 18 cans, that was much cheaper than $2.95 a can. And then the tax on it was unbelievable. I mean, I must have paid almost 22 at least. Unbelievable. You can't believe what you're paying. You don't expect what you're going to pay. This is how we create homelessness. People can't stay in their homes anymore because they can't even afford to eat.
Thank you so much for that comment. And every location we've gone to, cost of living has been the number one issue. And so that's going to bring us to our first interactive question. And so when you have your phone, those of you who did it, we're going to pop up the first question. What contributes to your high cost of living? And so this is a word cloud, so you can type in what contributes to your high cost of living. So that question, if it's not coming up, just refresh your phone and it will pop up. If you didn't scan, you can scan this QR code now to get there, to those interactive questions, or it's on those sheets that you have in front of you. If you're having issues, raise your hand and our staff will come and help. But while everybody is answering that first interactive question of what contributes most to your high cost of living, we'll go to our next comment out.
Okay, awesome.
A quick response to high cost of living. First of all, my name is David, representative from Eva Beach. And where I live, it's kind of hot. I didn't know Hawaii Kai was that hot also. Plus, I didn't know Hawaii Kai had high cost of living hardship over here too. I'm just joking. But, we are all trying to cut taxes as our Republican Party. We are the highest state that, always paying high taxes here, and we need more in our paychecks. And whatever we can do as a caucus to get more money for the people, I believe this is what we're about, to bring in more income to the people and try to find more cheaper cost of living.
Blake.
So he thought there was fresh, cool air coming out of Hawaii Kai. How about that for an image?
Thank you, Rep. Alcos and Rep. Ward. Here's Scott with a comment from Hawaii Kai.
Hi. Speaking of taxes and everything else, property taxes is another thing that you may not have any control over since it's a city thing, but they continually say how low our property taxes are, and they raise the assessment on our property. And also this Proposition A, families that have lived here for generations, that pass their property on to their children. Children may have their own property by then. Then they get the parents' place that they grew up in. Property taxes all of a sudden go through the roof because many of those properties, since they were bought in the 40s, 50s, 60s, are well over $1 million by now. Because they're not living in that property, their taxes go through the roof. As an example, my parents lived on the North Shore. They had a house. Their taxes were $7,000 a year. I inherited the house. My taxes went to $39,000 a year. Fortunately, it's grandfathered in as a short-term rental. Otherwise, I couldn't keep the property. So I don't know if there's anything that can be done about that kind of stuff.
The city council, as you said, has jurisdiction over that. The property taxes, all of you guys are all, by the way, in Eva Beach are millionaires. Everybody who has a house is median income, a medium house is 1.2 million. How we can avoid that, obviously, we need to get more land to build more houses. Well, we're not going to get any more land, so we're going to keep an increasing amount of that occurring. Now, what can be done about it? We can introduce legislation like they did in California, where there is a stop gate, where particularly by age and other demographics, you can cause a, how would you say, a downturn in that. That's something that Tommy Waters or some of his office, I don't think, is anybody from Tommy Waters' office here? He is the representative. I will speak with him about that, but that is something that we're all concerned about because as the property taxes go up, so do, how much does it cost to register your car with the city and county now? $400-500? I personally drive a rather old car, which if you take $400 or $500 to register it, it's a losing proposition. So that cost of living is something we need to pay strict attention to. Thank you for your question.
I think one thing also, our caucus and also our counterparts in the Senate had introduced bills this past session to restrict the outside influences from buying up property here in Hawaii. International investors, oftentimes, folks come in from Japan or Korea with cash on hand. They outbid the locals here who are using a mortgage loan to qualify for that purchase, and they come with cash on hand over asking price, and that raises property values in the whole neighborhood, which then forces property owners to pay more in property tax. So we're looking at ways, constitutional ways to not restrict, but push back the outside influences from buying up property here in Hawaii.
And so while we don't have direct jurisdiction over it, something that we can do at the legislature is put in a resolution urging the city council to look into those issues, and so that's something that our caucus can do as well. But I want to turn your attention to the word cloud, and so how the word cloud works is the more people who put in the same word, the bigger the word is. So the bigger words are the ones that more people put in, so I see food, housing, utilities, gas, and taxes as those top issues, and again, this helps us because we introduce bills on cost of living all the time, but to look a little bit deeper on what areas do we need to drill down into a little bit. And so I have another question that I want to ask out to you before we go to the next speaker. And this is something that has been interesting as we've gone across the island, but have you ever considered moving to the mainland due to the high cost of living? And so again, look on your phones, you can hit refresh and answer that question as we go to our next speaker. Blake?
Awesome, thank you. This is Pastor Josh.
Aloha. So I think cost of living is a very important issue, especially maybe speaking from my generation, especially a first home buyer. This past month, or actually past year, our family, I have 3 under 3, so young babies, and we felt like, it's time to find a place. And we were looking and just were kind of discouraged about the housing opportunities or options. I do love Hawaii Kai, and I currently am renting up St. Louis Heights. We'd like to stay in town somewhere, but man, Kapolei and Ho'opili area looks really nice.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's a red community too.
But one of the things is that the other option is always maybe there's no place for me here to raise my family. We're 4 generations Korean, and my great-great-great-grandparents came down here, and we call this very much home. And for me, along with a lot of my colleagues who are looking at California, looking, at Texas, looking at Florida, how are we going to keep local families in the generation here in Hawaii? And to me, this is and the interesting thing about this as well is I applied for affordable housing, and then I looked at the price and my mortgage, what it would be, and it was like $4,100 a month. And I'm just thinking, am I gonna live? Are we gonna, just for the mortgage? So that includes with the taxes, that includes interest rates at this point. So I don't know, it's just a comment that I like to say is for the Republican Party, what are some of the solutions or some thoughts that we can do to take care of our local families? And you did answer that about protecting our own and stuff like that, but that's all I had wanted to say.
Pastors need to get paid more money, Josh. Let me put it this way. The biggest barrier is the down payment. We had I think it was 2 sessions ago, a kama aina come home. If you came back, we would somehow guarantee your down payment. That didn't go very far, but it's one that we could reintroduce. I even introduced one called the ADU housing bill. If you have a piece of property and you put an ADU on it and you rent it out to somebody, we'll put half of you put in $1, we'll put in $1 up to 100,000, 50,000 each. We've got a lot of open private land that we can develop. Right now, even Senator Chang's Singapore housing model is not going very far. So to expect housing to go down unless there's really a major intervention by the government, it's not going to work. And I know the governor is working on a number of those things, but we're throwing money at things, but otherwise for guys like yourself, unless you got the down payment or the down payment is waived, it just ain't going to happen. And that's why people now, those who are part Hawaiian, there's more Hawaiians now on the mainland than there are in the state of Hawaii. We're exporting people, very unfortunately.
And you'll see later in the evening the bills that we introduced in 2023, and the main focus was for 2 of the areas was cost of living and housing. We also had a down payment assistance program where it's very similar if you have Island Flex, where you have pre-tax dollars for medical services or for childcare, but using this to apply to housing. So this program already exists in Hawaii. However, the amount was so low that it really doesn't help anybody get a down payment. So our bill was very simple to increase that amount so that you can have pre-tax dollars, and that's often saving you, a fourth to a third, helping you save more in order to get that down payment. Because when we've done surveys in the district, one of the biggest hurdles is that down payment. So we'll get to that later in the evening of the bills we introduced, but the cost of living and affordable housing is our top issues. And so I want to take us now to the survey, and it seems like overwhelming. Many people have considered moving to the mainland, and again, at each of the locations, this has been consistent. And I think that's a telling sign that cost of living is our top issue. And so I'm going to move us forward because the other issue that came up as one of the issues everybody wanted to discuss tonight is crime. And so if you have a comment, if crime was what you wanted to talk about, we're going to move there. But the question that we're going to have is our state too soft, fair, or too tough on crime? So that question is on your phone now. Do we have anybody in the audience that would like to? Oh, and I believe here we have a question.
Yeah, one last comment on the cost of living.
Yes.
This is Peggy from Hawaii Kai.
Aloha kako. I am addressing an issue that is forcing many kupuna to sell. We are being terrorized by potential fines of $5,000 or $10,000 a day for renting short-term rentals for under 30 days. We have a resistance to it going to 90. I've been asked to keep this to 1 minute, but anyway, we would like to see legislation introduced that will help kupuna who are hosts on their property, and thus they forestall parking, noise, and density problems. They're already in place. What is exacerbating the problem is investors that come in from the outside and scoop up lots of affordable properties and put them in the hands of a property manager to rent them short term. This is why we get a bum rap. But hosted properties negate the noise issue, they can take care of the parking issue, and they are not as dense as we would see with investor-owned vacation rentals. We would like to see our representatives work with us. We have pre-written legislation. It's probably not going to be much of a task. We would appreciate your kokua. Mahalo.
Thank you so much for your comment. And that brings me right into talking about, we are going to also be sending an email at the end of this evening. So if you haven't signed in, please make sure you give the information, because what we also want to hear is this isn't the end tonight. We want to have a continued dialogue for what legislation we put in next session. And so that's the perfect time to make sure you send that over to us as we're creating our caucus package. And also, I wanted to show, if you didn't get this sheet, that's there, it's at the front. It has each and every single one of us up here, our contact information, every way to get in touch with us. We want to have a continued dialogue going forward. So make sure you get this sheet going forward. And then also, if you don't have the opportunity to have your thoughts shared, or you don't really want to share in front of everybody, we do have this white sheet in the back as well that you can put your comments down, you can put your thoughts down, and make sure you put your email and your phone number, because if we have questions, we would like to get in contact with you. But again, if we don't get to you, this is also available, or if you don't want to raise your hand and share in front of everybody. So I'm going to take us to our crime question that everybody answered. If our state is too soft, fair, or tough on crime, well, that's a pretty clear answer. So nobody thought we were too tough on crime. 20 of you, oh, we got another one for fair, for 7, but 20 felt we were too soft on crime. So I don't know if anybody wants to comment here. We introduced some bills last session, but we'd love to hear, what areas do you think, when it comes to crime, do we really need to be looking into? Blake?
Awesome. Here is Ed from this district out here, Ed Jones.
Mahalo. This is kind of a follow-up to Peggy behind me. A few things to clarify. First of all, residential renting is regulated by the state. And I think that's not well understood in the legislature. Everybody's pointing to the counties. You know, of course, we have lots of ways to blame the counties, but, and particularly this one. But what we'd like to see very clearly is an introduced bill that sets up a permitting system for hosted renting. And it needs to be a state bill because it's regulated under our landlord-tenant code. And the other thing that's probably not well understood is that the counties are resistant to this. I spoke with the mayor for a few minutes yesterday, and he has opened the door to this. So I very much like to work with you and make sure that we have a bill as part of the package in the 24 session that sets up a permitting system for owner-occupied renting. An example of those we serve is folks coming into this county, because we have Queens and Kaiser, They're coming into this county to be with loved ones who are receiving treatment at the hospital. Okay, so they need to come in for a few days at a time. Not 30-day minimum just kills them. It sends them away. That is discompassionate. Thank you.
Edward, I look forward to working with you, and I hope you continue your relationship with the senior advisor that you met at the Beer Summit last week, Blake Oshiro, because the governor's office needs to know about that also. But okay, we will work on all of that, all of the above. But thank you for your point.
Okay, do we have another comment from the audience?
No crime problems. Somebody knows about crime.
Okay, we have Kevin.
Kevin Mulkern, dressed in his landscape garb.
Thank you for holding that for me.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I think a couple weeks ago, Police Chief Lee Donahue's funeral occurred kind of in Nu'uanu, and when he was police chief, I wrote my first letter trying to get a little more information on how effective the police department is. And I guess my comment is when we think the police are soft or strong or fair on crime, we don't have the information to actually come to or to understand what the police are doing. And in specific, I guess more than 20 years ago, the Kuli'o-Kalani'iki Neighborhood Board asked the police department to let us know how many arrests they were making each month so that we could understand, how well they were doing. Each month they appear at the neighborhood board meetings. Generally they tell us they've responded to 6,000 service calls a month, but will never tell us if they've made one arrest. So the public has no idea of how soft or fair or tough they are because that information doesn't exist. And when I say exist, readily accessible. If one goes down to the main police department, on the ground floor they have their arrest log for misdemeanors and another log for felonies. It's handwritten, it's not searchable. So it's nice to have that information, but who has the time to go through 2 phone books looking for how well they do? I was in Redlands visiting my daughter. Some of the exciting things she told me about is the red light cameras, the speed cameras, the cameras on buses that send you tickets automatically. I called up the Redlands Police Department. I asked them some questions. It may not be completely accurate, but I think they said there were 132 misdemeanor arrests in the month of July, and I think 37 felony arrests. But I got that information almost instantaneously. And I think the police department, it would be better for them if rather than publishing the crime mapping app telling us who was robbed in the neighborhood, to let us know how well they were doing so we would actually know if they were soft, fair, or tough on crime. We do not have that information.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you. And I think what we're looking at here is also, are our laws that we've been passing, is it too soft, fair, or tough? Because we can talk about some of the bills that have come in. There was a bill 3 years ago to legalize cocaine and heroin and meth. And so, again, the things going through the legislature, we see all the time. And just a few years ago, we raised the petty misdemeanor amount for theft from $350 to $750, right? So the laws are going in the opposite direction, but you're right, there needs to be transparency on, like, yes.
Of what you put on paper, it is meaningless unless one has the statistics to look at to see if the police are actually listening to what you're proposing or the courts are actually supporting the police.
Absolutely, and I think that's a great suggestion for us going forward in 2024.
Kevin, let me footnote that. I'm not a Shopo guy, but I know the police are very frustrated with this revolving door. They are not the source of that. They are the ones who are saying, look, we do our job, and you guys let them out the next day. And that's because of prosecutors and others within the system, the paroling system. You've got guys who just come in, and it's basically like spraying WD-40 on a already revolving door. It's very, very frustrating. And those particularly who in your neighborhood came out and a woman was bludgeoned literally because they were let out so quickly that they were not in any mental state or any state of being civilized, that they were allowed to do that. So the system needs tweaking, but look, we got recidivism at probably 50, 60%. If you went to the doctor and you only got healed 40% of the time, what would you think about the system? It's probably pretty broken. But we hear your question. We've got to fix the system.
Rep. Alcos?
There should be no excuse. Safety should be one of our first concerns for our families and our kikis, our kids. Before, where I used to live, when we was younger, I had no problem going out the house or my parents letting me out the house, going to the store. But nowadays, when you get out the house, you wonder who is these people around your neighborhood. You don't even recognize their face. They're not even from this island sometimes. Safety has to be put back onto one of the number one things in our state. And feels like in education, in crime, in housing, we're just moving backwards and backwards and backwards. And feel like our state is letting our people down. And we need to come together and stand strong to solve the problem. It's a tough one when we need the support from not legislature, but from the prisons, the police, everybody need to get in on that. So,
how many of you are on nextdoor.com? The new, that's the way that you're watching your neighbor's house, your neighbor's watching your house. Keep on, if you're not on nextdoor.com and you want to know what's going on in your neighborhood, just sign up. It's free, and some people sell a lot of their goods on that place at the same time. But it's for safety purposes, very, very invaluable.
And something that we're going to be looking at, and that we've looked at for the last few years, and it will be coming up again, I'm pretty sure, in the next session, is the question of, does the state need a new prison? And so that's going to be an interactive question coming up. Again, it's been something that's been hotly debated in the legislature, and I guarantee you it's going to be coming up again in 2024. So please go to your phones and answer that. And now, Blake, I'll come to you.
Awesome. We have another comment from Scott.
I was a police officer for 28 years here. And let me tell you, I agree with Representative Ward. It is not the police. It is the courts and the correction system that is the problem. The police will enforce the laws as best they can. Some of the laws that are written are not really enforceable the way they are written. But those that are enforced, once the arrest has been made, it is out of the police's hands. The court and the judge will decide what's going to happen to this person. There are not enough prison space to house the people or but they're being let out of prison because of overcrowding. And that has been going on for a long, long time, and yet nothing has been done about it, except lip service. So I'll throw it right back to you. We need to do something about the prisons and the courts, and we go from there.
Thank you for your service as a police officer. So you're saying we should have a new prison, correct? Absolutely. Okay.
I agree.
Okay, so the survey results, I know they're still coming in, but we see 15 in thinking that we need a new prison, 7 are undecided, and 3 don't think we need one. And what I want to encourage everybody to do is, if later on, it's on the sheet, but if you go to hawaiihousegop.com and you click up to sign up for the Republican Report, during session, every week, we send out an e-newsletter keeping you up to date on the bills that are moving through the legislative process, because we know how difficult it is to stay on top of things, because there will be 48-hour notice before a bill is being heard. And so it's a very quick process. And so I encourage everybody to sign up for the Republican Report. We are sending out during session the bills that are kind of controversial so you can see them. And we also have instructional guides as to how to testify, how to get involved. And now you can just do it from home. Before, you'd have to go down to the Capitol and spend almost all day waiting to testify. And now you can submit testimony from home, or you can do it via Zoom. So I want to encourage everybody, if you can please sign up for the Republican Report and get involved in the legislative process. We need your voices. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in committee and there will be a bill and there's no testimony. And I think it's really, really important. On our end, we get to see green for everybody who's in support, red for everybody who's in opposition, and black for comments. And so it really makes a difference when you do send that testimony in. So, Blake, do we have another question? I mean, another comment I see in the back?
This is Aaron from Hawaii Kai here in the area.
Hello, thank you very much for this time that we can speak out. I'm here to just kind of emphasize one of the things that I mentioned in one of the emails I actually sent to Representative Ward, who so graciously responded to me, and it's about traffic issues in our area. And I know this is not one of the, maybe the top issues that we're going to be talking about tonight, but I know this affects everyone here in this audience today, and I just wanted to read one of the things here about the Honolulu Police Department. It says, on August 13, 2023 at 9:10 p.m., a fatal pedestrian motor vehicle collision occurred in the area of North Nimitz Highway onto the H1 freeway westbound in the Kalihi area. I know that's not in this particular area, but the reason I mention this is this represented the 35th pedestrian fatality here in Oahu, which is the most in the last few years, and we're not even done with the year yet. And I can speak from personal experience because, as I wrote in my email, that multiple incidents have happened right on our, intersection, which is one of the busier intersections in this area of Hawaii Kai and near Kealahu Street. If anybody knows that area, it's like basically I talk to the residents in this area who walk all the time, and I actually was a witness to somebody who almost got ran over. It literally ran over. So for every incident here that we say 35 pedestrian fatalities, I'm not even sure how many people are injured as they're walking around and how many people are ending up in the hospital or, maybe, have severe life-threatening injuries but are not don't actually die. So, and how many missed accidents that happen all across this area here. And I know Hawaii is a wonderful place to go out and walk around, and we all want to be safe when we walk around. And I know in my neighborhood, we have to cross the street sometimes where there's no crosswalks at all. And I know probably everybody in this room, keeping it almost super local, that a lot of these areas where in the outskirts of town, there aren't any crosswalks. And even where there are crosswalks, people are going like 40, 50 miles an hour. And it's a 35, 25 mile an hour. And I know that there's been some, recent attempts to try to, bring down the speeds in these areas. But I know that I keep seeing people just running through stop signs, running through at night on the weekends. And this incident that I'm referring to happened actually near my house on that corner. And this old lady, elderly lady, and I just looked from up above. I heard this bang, and that caused me to go outside, and I saw as this lady was absolutely petrified. She was horrified, and her dog and her almost got ran over, and this person just basically ran through the stop sign, almost hit her, and then veered off, and then raced down the street as if nothing even happened, and then went down towards the beach area, down the street. So I know this is a really tough issue for all of us here because we probably experience people that have, if we're trying to cross the street, and I know here down Lunalilo Street, which is right outside, we see people trying to cross all the time and people just, and it's like near misses, like on a daily incident. I've even seen one in Kaimuki personally where a lady was walking across the street and almost got ran over. So thank you for all your input in this area and then different things, yeah.
Thank you. Rep. Ward?
The bad news is what you just said. The crosswalk is one of the most dangerous places that we have in Hawaii Kai. In fact, in any place. In fact, for the elderly, it's probably a killing zone. Maybe that's too extreme. But you would also think that when you go snorkeling in Hama Bay, you're not in danger. But that is, for people, one of the more death traps for deaths. The good news is there's been a change of heart in the DOT and the DTS, both the city and the state, saying, you know, we better do some, they call it traffic calming methods, street dieting. We're going to narrow people. We're going to put rumble strips. We're going to put other kinds of barriers and, and humps. Those things are coming, particularly for people, if any of you live near Camilo Iki School, that has been a death trap, or let's say a frightening place for any kids who walk near or by that place. And for those in Kalama Valley, there's not one crosswalk in Kalama Valley. So we're working on that. I know this is a little bit inside baseball, but to know that people are very concerned because, hey, Hawaii Kai, we got a little bit embarrassed. DTS, Department of Transportation Services, did a survey about how Hawaii Kai at, what's the name of the street? Kaumakani and Lulila Home Road. Guess how many of you stop or don't stop there? 29% stopped and yield to pedestrians crossing at the crosswalk. 71% in the last detail said, we in Hawaii Kai just went on our way. I mean, we're in a hurry. We got lots of mortgages to pay. Yep. But it's where, hey, we were the worst in the state, or let's say the worst on Oahu, because we were running when pedestrians already stepped in and they're doing a test. And by the way, we can increase our score because they do it every 2 weeks and then they put it on the blue signage. So yeah, it's dangerous, which is a sign for all of us. Slow down, let's let the pedestrians have a chance at walking across the street.
I also want to add to that is that we need more police officers in our community. Right now, police are 25% low of what?
400 officers.
Short. We short teachers, we short nurses, we short a lot of workers out in our community. And the more we grow, we even get less. The police officers got to cover more ground. Maybe if had police officers and they knew somebody was coming around, they would slow down, that traffic crash would not happen, you know. But for our safety, for our families, we need police officers in our county.
And so I'm going to do one last question before we move on to the next topic that you all wanted to talk about this evening. The next one was election integrity scored high. But this is going to be a big issue this next session. Should the state of Hawaii legalize recreational marijuana? And again, this is going to, I think, be a top issue, so we wanted to ask this question as we're heading into the next session. And again, if you want to talk about election integrity, you can raise your hand now, because again, that was the next topic that people wanted to talk about according to our pre-event survey.
We have one more comment about crime. Here is Steve from the Hawaii Kai area.
All right, thanks. First of all, thanks for coming out. Thanks for all the folks for coming out as well. With respect to a new prison, I thought one thing that might be considered, or two things actually, I understand we have a shortage of effective mental health treatment facilities, and I also understand we have a shortage of effective drug rehab here in the state of Hawaii. So those might be two things in sort of parallel to the prison. We might be able to reduce the prison population that way. So,
Thank you for that, Steve, because that just led me into one thing we didn't comment. Our caucus thinks we need to be enforcing the laws and be tough on crime, but also focused on that rehabilitation piece. So in our caucus package, we also had that rehabilitation piece that you talked about, because that's a contributor to that revolving door. So thank you. But if you do have specific ideas or bills on how we can help the mental health issue or the rehabilitative piece, we would love to hear those in our end of session, the end of event survey. And so looking at the results here, I see 21 said no, 2 said yes, and 2 undecided. So that helps us give a little bit of a temperature check as we're heading into the 2024 session, because there were already, I don't even know how many, 20 bills introduced in 2023 relating to this issue. Okay, so moving on to the next topic of election integrity, I want to let you know we're going to spend about 10 minutes on this, but we're also going to open it up at the very end for areas that aren't the top 3 that you came to talk about tonight. We're also going to spend 10 minutes after that talking about those things. So does anybody have a comment in regards to election integrity, you can raise your hand now. Okay, I see one. And as Blake's walking over there, we'll put up another question. Do you believe election integrity is an issue in Hawaii?
Here is Cynthia.
I was one of the people last year that waited to the day of election to vote. And I was also, whatever you call that, observer. I was an observer. I do have a lot of points I won't go over now, but the lack of oversight as an observer was pretty amazing to me. But I do want to say that I think the other side does a really good job of going out beforehand and getting the undecided votes, and I think we massively failed at that, and we need to switch our directions so that we go out early, because if you're an undecided voter or a weak Democrat and somebody comes to your door, you're done. But so we wait and wait and wait to the last day, and there's less and less voters, and that's why we lost.
Thank you. I see another hand here. And so looking at the results, 15 people said that election integrity is an issue in Hawaii, 2 no and 1 undecided. And Blake, I'll go to you now.
Well, as a long-time activist in the party, and also I worked 40 years in the election booths. I was there, and I always liked how regulated it was, and how everyone that came to vote in person knew what they were there for. And we always checked to see who they were. And then as far as the rules were at that time, if they didn't vote for 2 years, they would be removed from the votes, from the polls, and they would have to re-register. Now, my husband died 8 years ago, and I'm still getting ballots. Now, do I believe that there are some issues here in this state? Yes. So please work on it.
I say absolutely, and I know one of the things Rep. Ward talks about all the time is cleaning up the voter rolls. I think that needs to be done first and foremost, especially in 2020. We moved to the all mail-in ballot, and then we saw how clearly we need to work on those voter rolls. Blake, I see another question or comment here.
Yes, we have Lily from the Kahala area.
Yeah, I just want to say really short, everyone who votes must be a citizen, must be a certified citizen, because I've gone through the application form that the city gives you, the registration form, that's what I'm saying. All you have to do is check that you're a citizen. There's no one certifying that. So I think that in itself is a flaw, a big flaw. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. I see hands raised. While Blake is getting to you, I'll go to the next question. Have your thoughts on the integrity of elections affected your voting habits? Yes or no?
And we have another comment from Sylvia here in Hawaii Kai.
I would say yes. I used to be an AVR at the polls. I was working the polls for years. And the last time I did work at them, we were trained that we could not ask for identification. And without identification, how do we tell? There is a fail-safe list. Like she mentioned, her husband died years ago. Well, if that flyer or the postcard comes out and it returns to headquarters, they're put on a list, the fail-safe list. I'm not saying it was failed to be delivered, safe to vote. I'm not saying that, but it sure sounds like it, because it was so apparent one year, a new worker at Camilo Iki School put up the wrong list. He put up the fail-safe list. And so they kept sending the people to me asking why their name isn't on the list. These are the new people trying to come to vote. So I went out, I looked at the list. It was a very long list of the fail-safe list. So if that card was sent out and returned, the name is put on there, and unfortunately, if the person vetting the voters coming in to vote, if they can't ask for an ID, they could be given a name as long as you can recite the name and the address. You get the ballot.
Thank you for that. I think it's quite simple with elections. Election day, we find out who wins on election day, one vote per person, you show your ID to vote. It's pretty simple. There's been multiple efforts here this last session to eliminate, in the audit purposes, paper ballots. And so our caucus was very much against that. There needs to be a paper trail, so when you do the 10% audit that's required by the Constitution, there is a paper ballot, the original ballot, to verify it with. Otherwise, machines can spit out whatever they want, but we have to keep that paper trail. So thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go one more on election integrity, and then we're going to open it up. So if you still wanted to talk about election integrity, you can. But the next round, we're going to open up to any of the issues that you wanted to talk about this evening. Blake.
Awesome. Great response, Rep. Garcia. Thank you. And this is Beverly.
And I used to work at the polls, and we always had to ask somebody to have some form of ID, even if it was a bill. Now, there is nothing, and the last thing I like is sending in my vote by law for voting, just a vote. And there is no such way anybody knows I am me. Even if, I can be the nastiest little whatchamacallit, but it doesn't matter. They send it, and who knows, somebody can change my vote. There are nobody to overlook. There's no Republicans, no Democrats even, to overlook the vote. And I have worked with Democrats, and they are very honest. So both parties are having trouble. So I don't think we should underestimate the fact that we have Democrats that are willing to work and do the work of cleaning up the polls too, because they want it just as much as we do. So let's give everybody a chance.
Absolutely. This is not a partisan issue. I feel like every single person in the state should have trust in the election process. It's not a Republican issue. It's not a Democrat issue. It should be everybody's issue, right? Because if you don't have trust in the election process, then that just degrades the trust in the government. And Rep. Ward, what is the number you always like to say? Our approval rating is 16%?
18%.
18, we did a little
what
better.
you think of your legislators is 18% approval.
And just looking at the survey that we had up there, have your thoughts on the integrity of elections affected your voting habits? That's a pretty even split there, but again, helpful for us as we go forward. So I'm going to open up the floor now to any comments. Blake?
Yes, we have another comment from Peggy.
Aloha. I voted on the mainland one year because I was over there for a while, and I sent for an absentee ballot in September, and I got a notice back it was too early, so I waited till October. I got my ballot the day before the election. I said, okay, folks, this is war. And I got a FedEx earliest next day delivery, which cost me a pretty penny. But I filled out that ballot and I sent it FedEx first AM delivery. And I tracked it. And about noon, it said delivery had been attempted. It said it must be in on election day at the elections office with the address, and that's where I sent it. The reply was that the elections office was closed that day, on election day.
I don't even know how to comment on that one. obviously an issue. And I do want to just say, I know we have a lot of people that want to still comment, so we're getting a little tight on time. So if you can keep your comments to a minute, but also at the end of the evening, all of us representatives are going to be at the back of the room, and we're going to stay so you can talk to us. And again, we'll be sending out that email at the end we'll be sending out that email in a few days for you to also give us some feedback or bill ideas. So there will be a lot of time to continue talking with us. I'm going to bring up another question. If Hawaii were to diversify its economy, which sector should be its focus? While that's going up, I'm going to go to you, Blake.
Awesome. We have another comment from Sylvia.
I just wanted to add to her comment. There was a lady, it showed it on a clip on TV, about 3 people went in to vote in person. Their ballot had already been voted, so they were sent up to line up, but there was nothing really that could be done except poll it and hope that it's taken care of.
Absolutely. I see another question up here.
We have another Peggy.
I just attended a workshop that Corinne Solomon, who set up on weighted voting, that our state accepted. And they're trying to make a bill to be against it. This weighted voting was used in Alaska, and that's why Sarah Palin, they think, lost the election. So I hope that you can look into this. It's where you ranked weighted voting. You rank the people that are running for an election. It makes the election process very non-transparent. And again, she explained, the guy explained how, Sarah Palin would have probably won, but because of the weighted way they did it, that she lost. And so the election committee is trying to write a bill to stop this from happening, because it was accepted by our election people.
Ranked choice voting is the mumbo jumbo of elections. Started in Australia, people are kind of flirting with it, and Australia and other places but most people don't even understand it. Some of you as constituents have called and asked for an explanation, and I said my staff should call the election office. The election office said they could not explain it themselves. So what it is for all of us on the voting booth is like, hey, this is crazy stuff. It's another gimmick to get hands in a certain power structure.
And just one thing, FYI, Hawaii did pass ranked choice voting specifically for special elections for the congressional races. So you guys might remember in 2010, there was a special election where Charles DeJoux won, and that was out of nowhere. Well, now that would not be the case. He would not have won that race because of ranked choice voting now applies to those special elections.
And we all voted against it.
And again, sign up for those emails, because ranked choice voting has been put up for consideration in the legislature for at least the last 3 years.
We have another comment from someone in Hawaii Kai.
Kay Williamson. I went to renew my driver license, and it's a form on the front, very little print and so forth. But on the second page, it's a voter registration application. And of course, I just put, decline because I'm already registered. But down here in little print, it's, are you a citizen? Are you at least 16 years of age? Are you a resident of the state of Hawaii? But in big print, if you are disabled and unable to read standard print, would you like to receive an electronic ballot? Yes, I am disabled and unable to read standard print and would like to request an electronic ballot be sent to my email address indicated on this application. Is there something wrong with this?
We will look into that, Kay.
On the driver's license, you might.
And we have another comment from Ed.
Thank you, Blake. So this is
on
kind
your
of
on that driver's license application, did it request what gender are you?
There's now a
It's
gender
crazy.
X, just FYI.
Blake?
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Again, here's Ed.
Thank you, Blake. This kind of continues a conversation that occurred in previous meetings, but I did want to bring it up here because I think it's important that across the state, we maintain a map of, now the federal government is primarily responsible for our cell towers and our connectivity, communications connectivity. But if we had a map that indicated just basically there's battery backup on towers, in Kalama Valley, for example, when the power is out, communications are out. Hawaii Tel and the cell towers are out. I think it's very important to have, particularly in light of what occurred on Maui, to have communications to our cells first and foremost, but other devices in our household through the cable and fiber networks. What the state could do is maintain a map that these things are working or not working at the last test, and I think that would be a kind of accountability to our carriers and to our federal support to make sure that we have the necessary connectivity if there's a tsunami or a fire or any of those kinds of things that we've been talking a lot about lately. Mahalo.
Ed, is that a lesson learned from Maui? Basically, when communication went out, a lot of bad decisions were made. How many of you use Starlink? Any of you use Starlink? Oh, we have one person. Because that's the wireless way of getting away from cell towers, getting it from the satellite. Is it working? Has it ever gone out? Okay, so that is recharged Maui. Okay, that is a good. Ed, we have to follow up with that as a legislative piece.
I'm just going to go to the question really quick. If Hawaii were to diversify its economy, which sector would be its main focus? So agriculture is first. Number one, going to then high tech, and then pharmaceuticals, and then the TV film industry. Again, this is really helpful. One of the issues that we focus on in our caucus is on economic diversification, and we see that very clear with Maui and where we're struggling, where if we're just a tourism-based economy, we're really in trouble when things like this happen. And so that's another area that we're looking into in our caucus. And what's great is the three areas we were looking at was agriculture, tech, and the film industry. So at least it looks like we're on target with what everybody is thinking about. And so the last question before we go on to the next portion of the evening is, what one word or phrase would you use to describe the Hawaii State Legislature? We will not be offended with whatever word you put there, but one word or phrase you'd use to describe the Hawaii State Legislature. And we'll take one more comment while that survey is going up.
Okay, great. We have another member from Hawaii Kai. Here is Cynthia.
I have a question and a solution, I hope. I'm wondering why we don't eliminate people that have died from our voter list. If Social Security can do it, Medicare can do it, why can't we do that for the elections? Who notifies Social Security and Medicare? I mean, they should be able to notify the Office of Elections.
Cynthia, that's an excellent question, because I've proposed that to Mr. Nago. He said, I don't have the money, I don't have the manpower. Give me the money and the man. In other words, the most important thing that he should be doing is cleaning those rolls. Is not being done because using the excuse of not the manpower or the money. That, to me, is unacceptable. You have to have that as the priority of why your office is there. That's why some constituents have said, I've got 8 ballots. What am I going to do with it? These people have moved away. My family is gone. Liz Moore said her husband died 8 years ago, and he's still getting a ballot up on Mariners Ridge. I mean, give me a break. So that has got to be a priority. And it's a bill that we will put in to make sure that that happens. I know that's for sure. Who notifies Social Security and Medicare of the? So somebody knows that somebody died.
You don't get your retirement check.
Good point.
Is it the mortician that notifies, or you get a death certificate. It ought to be the same process.
And that should go directly to the Office of Elections. Okay. Duly noted specifically.
Okay, so I'm just looking at the one word or phrase you'd use to describe the Hawaii State Legislature. I see a lot of corrupt up there. That has been a big issue. We have several of our colleagues that have been indicted in the last 3 years. Looking at that has been a big issue for our caucus. making sure that we are ethical and making sure that we are following the rules and we're held to the same standards. I saw, unbalanced, one-sided. That's another issue, and a lot of times bills just fly through the process because there isn't any discussion that's happening, and we do our best to bring up things that are both really great moving through the legislature, but also things that we have questions about. But that balance is an issue in our state. And these are really helpful for us as we go forward. And so we're going to take all of these comments. It gives us a good temperature check. But for the last portion of the evening, we wanted to hear your feedback on our 2023 legislative session bills. So you're getting passed out right now, this sheet. And these are the 15 bills that our caucus put in 2023. So where we're asking for your input and your help is next year, for 2024, we can reintroduce many of these bills. So we have a short video for you to follow along with that cover each of these bills that we're going to play now, so you can follow along, and then we have a few questions afterwards to help us know what are the most important things to reintroduce. And so we're going to play that video now.
Aloha, I'm Representative Lauren Matsumoto, the House Minority Leader, and the House Republican Caucus is committed to take a stand for Hawaii this legislative session so that the people of our state aren't simply surviving, but thriving. Our Republican legislation will focus on combating the high cost of living, assisting families towards home ownership, supporting the rights of people to make decisions for themselves, implementing government reform, and keeping our communities safe by being tough on crime and creating pathways towards rehabilitation. The majority of people in Hawaii are living paycheck to paycheck. The high cost of living has been a growing issue for years. For decades, the Republican caucus has introduced legislation to eliminate taxes on food and medical services.
You've got your shopping cart, you're going through the aisles at the local grocery store. Now it's time to check out, and you see the prices going up and up and up and up. And now you see the taxes on that, the general excise tax on your food. Now you're at your favorite doctor, and he's giving you his bill on what it costs to be healthy in Hawaii. And you're thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, the general excise tax on my medicine and my medical services are also high. That shouldn't be. Here at the Hawaii House of Representatives, the Republican caucus wants to solve that problem by eliminating general excise tax on food and medicine. Who likes state income taxes? Nobody does. So here at the Republican caucus at the House of Representatives, we've introduced a bill, House Bill 624, to eliminate state income tax on those who make $150,000 or less.
For the average household, this will provide an additional $15,000 back in their pockets every year. I mean, that is something that is truly life-changing.
How about a tax holiday where you don't have to pay any taxes on the products you buy as long as the product is $2,000 or less? Wouldn't that be amazing? So you go to 7-Eleven, you go to Costco, you go to Sam's Club, you go to Walmart, you go to Home Depot, and there's no taxes. Wouldn't that be awesome? Think of all the amazing products you could buy.
Homeownership is unattainable for the majority of our state. It's a pipe dream. The people of Hawaii need assurance that we as a legislative body are taking every possible measure so our families are not left with the tough decision to leave Hawaii. Creating paths towards home ownership has to be a priority.
House Bill 632 would modernize the Hawaiian homes lease. About 122 years ago, Prince Kohio in the U.S. Congress got this act passed to put Native Hawaiians back on the Aina, back on the soil. And here we are, 100 years later. We are proposing House Bill 632, which would modernize this Hawaiian homes lease so that any person who is awarded the lease can take that lease to the bank and qualify for a mortgage loan to get them in a home.
One of the biggest obstacles to buying a home is saving up for a down payment. That is why we will propose a down payment assistance program to make that pipe dream a reality.
The struggle is real, guys. Saving up for a down payment is one of the biggest hurdles facing local families here in Hawaii. So the House Republican Caucus has proposed House Bill 634 to help you out to save for that down payment.
Are you a resident of Hawaii struggling with the ability to purchase a home? HB 633 will keep affordable housing units affordable to the initial targeted area medium income level. What this does is it solves the problem of an unaffordable market rate of housing.
In my constituency in Hawaii Kai, one person said, I just got 8 ballots in the mail. Gee, what do I do with these things? And that's why this bill 628, HB 628 in our caucus package says we need voter integrity to clean up those rolls. People who died, people who moved away, we have got really sorry rolls. It's because those voter rolls are not up to date. This bill hits it right on the nose. Guess what our approval rating is here in the state legislature? 18%. Why is that? Because people don't believe that we are ethical, that we're doing the right things, or our standards of conduct are missing. Well, there's been a recent Standard of Conduct's commission by Judge Foley, and he had 31 recommendations, of which our caucus have adopted all 31 of those recommendations. Maybe we'll go from 18% to maybe 20% if we get them out.
We need transparency in government now more than ever.
How many of you out there want term limits? Surveys indicate 70% of you want term limits, and we have a bill called HB 626 that says there shall be term limits. But guess what happened? The chair of the committee that is listening to that bill or hearing it has killed the bill without any votes. So term limits is something saying in our caucus package, you can go 16 years, you're up and you're out. Personal note, I have overstayed the term limits, and I'm personally willing to step out, vote for this bill, and retire Representative Gene Ward.
The phrase crime is on the rise doesn't even begin to capture the severity of the issue. I mean, I recall just a few weeks ago, there was the story of the news of a man who broke into a 77-year-old woman's home, threw her down the stairs, and violently beat her. And this man is a convicted murderer who was let out of jail. This is an issue that hits so close to home for me because this woman was my neighbor.
Here in Hawaii, crime is on the rise. And wouldn't you want to feel safe in your local community? Well, the House GOP caucus is proposing a stand your ground law. What that means is if your life or your family's life is in imminent danger, you have the right to use deadly force, lethal force to protect yourself and your family. This is common sense. So we're proposing House Bill 636 to protect you and your family.
Aloha, this is David Alcos, District 41, Eva Beach. I want to introduce you to HB 629. HB 629 is the Right to Try bill. The Right to Try bill is if you do have a loved one that is on the deathbed, no drug is going to save their life. No drugs is going to stop their pain. This would allow them to try experimental drug. And this experimental drug can save our family's life and bring hope into our families. HB 629 is a bill that will bring hope and a chance for them to live. We are for life. I am Representative David Alcos.
We want to turn the volume up on our constituents' voices to be heard through legislation like implementing local school boards. Every single state have implemented local school boards except for Hawaii. This way, our communities will have a greater say in the direction of public education in our state. Local voices need to have a seat at the table.
Why does one school board oversee all our public schools statewide? HB 630 will amend this constitution of the state of Hawaii to provide multiple and local boards that are populated and elected boards members. This bill will help our keikis, and that's what I'm all about. Aloha.
What occupations should be required to have licensing? As of now, the state has over 180 professional and vocational licenses. We introduced a bill this year, HB 631, that will create a task force to review the current licensing requirements and establish a framework that will provide clearer pathways to getting jobs in our state, which is so important. There are currently many jobs that require a license that feel like it has government overreach. For example, needing a license to braid hair seems a little restrictive. People of Hawaii, we are listening. We want to hear what you have to say. Please join us this legislative session, use your voices, and help us make Hawaii a better home for you today and for future generations.
So that was our 2023 bill package. And again, we're coming out to all the communities to develop a bill package for 2024. So all of your suggestions tonight, the surveys are going to help us craft the 2024 legislative bill package. But we're going to go through a few of the more of those interactive questions because we want to know, of the bills that we introduced in 2023, what did you feel were the most important? And so the first area was cost of living. And so our question involves with, we want you to rank the cost of living bills. What do you think was the most important? The GET exemption on food and medical services, eliminating the income tax for everybody except for the very top, or the state tax holiday. So you can, on your phone, swipe to choose which one is at the top. There we go, it's coming in. And so, I don't know, as these are coming in, if the caucus, if you want to comment on these bills.
I have a comment on one. My favorite bill this session from our caucus package was to eliminate the state income tax. We pay a lot in income tax. We are one of the top 3 states in the whole country with the highest income taxes, and yet we have nothing to show for it, really. And so I would like to see that eliminated. You know, there's been states like Texas and Florida who've removed that completely in these last 3 years, and their revenue has actually gone up, not down. So I think that's a big boost, and that would save the average family about $15,000 a year back in your pocket.
Not that we're swaying your decision on your votes. You still pick whatever you would like to. There. Rep. Ward?
Lauren, I have a story that I'm going to embarrass somebody in the audience with. Because she went to Costco the other day and she was going to buy a steak for the family. And as we were checking out, half of our bill was the steak. $42 for a steak at Costco. And I said, what's going on? She said, well, if you went to Roy's, it would cost you double just to have them cook it, etc. So I'm using that as an excuse to tell you how my wife is such a good provider for our family. And she's the Speaker of my house. Would you please welcome Farida Ward, who always is embarrassed. I always embarrass her, but I wanted to say the sticker shock that she showed me the other day. $42 for a steak. I mean, my goodness.
So it's looking on these cost of living bills. It's pretty close for the income tax and the GET. So thank you. We're going to move to the next area, which is housing. So we'd like you to rank our 3 housing bills of what you think is the most important for us to introduce the next legislative session. And if you need to, a reminder just to refresh. And as you are voting, I want to say, I know we got a few of the papers in for people who had questions but didn't raise their hands, and I'm sorry we didn't get to you, but we will answer those questions via email or by phone, so we will get to you, and we will also, again, be in the back, so don't worry, we will be getting to your questions. We just had so many tonight, which is great. I really appreciate all of the participation. So it looks like for this one, oh, it's still shifting, that the down payment assistance, keeps moving on me, was the number 1 for the housing bills. And then I'm going to move us on to the next question. I'd like you to rank our government reform bills. Again, this was something that was brought up a lot in what you wanted to talk about tonight. Government corruption. So some of the government reform bills, if you could rank those. Rep Ward, it looks like you don't have to term yourself out.
And by the way, I have introduced that bill many, many years. Sam Sloan used to do it every year also. He used to do initiative, referendum, and recall, term limits. I mean, Sam was very consistent year by year by year. But I'll tell you, the majority party doesn't want to have anything to do with that because they say the election is term limits are every 2 years, which is debatable.
And I would be terming myself out as well, so we would be going out together.
That's right. You've been in now 10 years?
11 years.
11 years.
Okay, so looks like election reform is the number one. We're going to move next to the top bill for the in our crime and rehabilitation bills. And I'll just put a comment. What's been so interesting is I've been sending surveys out to my district. I represent Mililani and Mililani Mauka, and I've been sending surveys out for the last 10 years, and crime was never in the top 5. And in the last 2 years, it's been in the top 3, the number 1 or number 2 issue. And so that's been really interesting to watch that trend over the years. This one seems a little closer. Stand Your Ground seems to be the first one. But this is a lot more balanced of a question than the other ones. Any comments there? Okay. And sorry that I'm racing through here. I just want to be cognizant of your time. The last question that we have for the Republican caucus, please rate the rights bills, the personal rights, the right to try, the parental rights with the local school boards, and the occupational licensure task force. We can't find the question. Okay. We can move on. Okay, so the last thing that I want to bring up, can you bring up the survey? Is we do have for every place that we have gone to, we've been asking people to fill out a survey. I know there's a lot of surveys tonight, but we really did want to listen to you. The listening tour is what we did, but we want you to provide input for the 2024 bill package, and we've been doing this at every location. And so that QR code is here on that main form, so you can take it and do it at home. And if the QR code is not your thing, at the front, we do have these blue sheets, and it's the exact same questions, but you can fill it out with a pen. So if you prefer the pen, we ask that you fill this out tonight because we've been collecting this information from each location that we've gone to, and I'll have them pull it up on the screen right now. We'll scroll through really quickly, but so that you can see the survey results from this survey that we've been taking at every location that we've gone to thus far. It's loading. But we asked, what are the 3 most important issues facing our state today? Not surprising, we have cost of living up there, but government corruption, homelessness, and crime are in the top 5. So again, these are out of 199 responses of all the, again, locations that we've gone to. The next question we asked are, what are the 3 most important issues facing your community? This sometimes shifts, right? It's been interesting to watch that go through because now you have cost of living, homelessness, and affordable housing in the top. The next question that we asked is, has Hawaii's cost of living altered my way of life? Very overwhelmingly in the strongly agree and agree. Next, we have, I feel safe in my community. This one was a little more mixed, but again, helpful for us as we move through with those crime bills. And next, we have, is state government doing enough to create affordable housing? Overwhelmingly, no. So again, another area that we're looking towards. The next question was, Hawaii is a good place to start a new business. Many people disagree, strongly disagree, or are neutral. We're one of the most unbusiness-friendly states in the nation. Next. Our Hawaii state government will make good decisions in emergency situations. Overwhelmingly, no. Something that we see recently that we need to really work on. It's been brought to light over the last few years, unfortunately, in different situations. Next. How would you rate the performance of the Honolulu City Council? 10 being that they are absolutely amazing, we love them. 1 being not so much. So it looks like 5, middle or below for the performance of the City Council. Now, how would you rate the performance of the Hawaii State Legislature? We seem to be doing worse, but also not doing very good. So needing to work on that. Next. Is that it? Oh, I'm sorry. Next. So those are the survey questions, but again, those are the ones that will really help us in creating our 2024 legislative package. So please fill it out via the QR code, or if you could take some time tonight to fill out the blue sheet. We really appreciate that. And we haven't done this at any other location, but Rep. Ward really wants to hear from you. So if you'd like to give us feedback on tonight, we also have this yellow sheet to fill out. So really listening to you and getting a lot of feedback from everybody. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. I want to make sure before we end, I want to give a huge thank you and mahalo to all of our staff. We have our House Minority Research staff here. We have each of our office staff. So if you are a staff member that is helping us out tonight, if you can please stand, wave, and we can give them a round of applause.
Yay, staffers. And Lord, can I mention one thing?
Yes.
The listening doesn't stop when the listening tour ends here. Make sure that you get one of our cards. Make sure that you fill out the survey. Make sure that we stay in touch because, look, it's a few months before the session starts, and reminders of things that happened tonight have to be fulfilled. I know Hawaii Kai always demands actions. They ask hard questions, and if we don't do it, you guys are going to be very unhappy with us. So make sure you get one of my cards, one of the cards from our colleagues. Thank you.
And all of our information is also on here. So you can get cards and this. But I also, wanted to give a huge mahalo to Olelo, who has been here filming the entire
Yay,
thing.
Olelo.
So if any of your friends weren't able to make it, they can watch everything again on Olelo. And last but not least, I want to say mahalo to all of our reps. I wanted to, if we can give them a round of applause. And you saw him in the video, but Rep. Elijah Perrick had a very important community meeting in his area, and so we let him go for that. But he's been at every single one with us, but I wanted to make sure we gave him a shout out because he is an active member of our caucus as well.
And Lauren, one shout out to Principal Shitaoka, who gave us the premises for the evening. So thank you, Mr. Shitaoka.
And thank you to all of you who came out tonight. Again, we will be in the back. Please come and talk with us. Thank you for coming to our listening tour.
Hui ho.
Maybe I've done the